In a serene Boston suburb, the Wilson family's dream of welcoming a new baby becomes a heart-pounding thriller. What dark secret does a trusted nurse hide? When young Lily uncovers a chilling connection between her father and a scheming hospital worker, a deadly plot unfolds. Can Deborah save her newborn son and outsmart a deranged mind plotting to tear her family apart? Packed with betrayal, bravery, and shocking twists, this story of a mother's love and a child's courage will keep you glued to the screen. Watch to the end, you won't see the final revelation coming. The Wilson family's charming white two-story home nestled peacefully in the vibrant, leafy suburbs of Boston. A crisp November morning had dawned with golden and crimson leaves piling up in the front yard, whispering the end of autumn and the arrival of winter's chill. Deborah stood by the living room window, her hands gently cradling her heavily pregnant belly, taking slow, deliberate breaths. Oh, how miraculous this moment felt. After 7 grueling years of fertility treatments, countless heartaches, and moments when hope seemed lost, this baby, her little miracle, had come into being just when she'd nearly surrendered. Every morning, Deborah whispered prayers of gratitude for this precious life growing inside her. "Mom, come see my science project." Lily's bright, bubbly voice rang out from the living room, pulling Deborah from her thoughts. With careful steps, Deborah made her way downstairs, her eyes lighting up at the sight of Lily's solar system model. Her 8-year-old daughter stood proudly beside it, and wow, what a creation. The planets were meticulously placed, their sizes perfectly proportional, showcasing Lily's delicate touch and boundless curiosity. "Lily, this is absolutely stunning. Have you been working on this all week?" Deborah beamed gently, ruffling her daughter's soft brown curls. Lily's face glowed with pride at her mother's praise. She was a star at school, with teachers constantly raving about her knack for science and art. Her vivid imagination and surprisingly mature demeanor never ceased to amaze. "Do you think Dad will love it? Is he coming home soon?" Lily asked, her eyes wide with hope. Deborah's smile faltered for a split second. Michael, her husband, was a sales manager at a medical equipment company, and lately his work had consumed him. Frequent business trips meant less time at home, and it weighed on her heart. "Dad's got a big meeting with clients today, sweetie, so he'll be late. But tomorrow morning you can show him and he'll be so proud," Deborah said softly, though tiny worries swirled in her mind. Michael had been so exhausted lately, hadn't he? Their family conversations, once so lively, had grown quieter, more distant. He seemed thrilled about their second child, but something about him felt off. It gnawed at Deborah. She herself had been a dedicated library curator for years, but now on doctor's orders, she was on leave, her active spirit confined to rest as she approached the late stages of pregnancy. Staying still was torture for someone like her, but keeping this baby safe, that was everything. Later that afternoon, as she prepared a simple dinner for Lily, Deborah reviewed her pre-birth checklist, 1 week until her due date. The hospital bag was nearly packed, the tiny newborn clothes washed and neatly folded. They'd chosen the name Thomas after Michael's father, a name that felt warm and right. The front door creaked open and Lily's feet pattered across the floor. "Dad," she squealed. Michael was home early. What a surprise. "Look at my solar system." Dad, Lily's voice bubbled with excitement, met by Michael's weary but warm chuckle. "Lily, this is incredible. Are you sure you're only 8? He teased, his voice laced with pride. Deborah stepped out from the kitchen, her heart lifting at the sight of her husband. But oh, he looked drained, his tie hung loose, his shirt collar crumpled. Still, he managed to smile, his eyes softening at her rounded belly before leaning in for a gentle kiss. Meeting wrapped up early. "How are you holding up?" he asked. "I'm okay, just some back pain." "The doctor says it's normal, thank goodness," Deborah replied, brushing off the ache. That night, after Lily was tucked into bed, the couple sank into the living room couch, the TV humming softly in the background. Michael slipped his arm around Deborah, pulling her close, his face nuzzling into her hair. "Deborah, I'm so grateful I found you," he murmured, his voice thick with emotion. Her heart skipped. When was the last time he'd said something so tender? Caught off guard, she nestled closer, savoring the warmth of the moment. They began chatting about life after the baby's arrival. Michael's parents lived too far to visit right away, and Deborah's parents, with their health struggles, couldn't travel either. Carol will be our rock, won't she? Deborah said, thinking of their dear friend. Michael nodded, and they agreed she'd be their lifeline. But late that night, a sharp, searing pain jolted Deborah awake. Labor A, full week early, her heart raced as the contractions gripped her. Michael was set to leave for a 2-day business trip in the morning, but he sprang into action, his face a mix of worry and focus. I'll call Carol, Deborah said through gritted teeth, the pain intensifying. You should go on your trip. This could take hours. Michael hesitated, his eyes searching hers. Are you sure? He asked, voice tight. She nodded, and reluctantly he agreed. Carol arrived in a flash, her calm presence a godsend as she whisked Deborah to the hospital. Before they left, Lily, rubbing sleepy eyes, whispered, Mom, Dad, please come back soon with the baby, okay? Deborah's heart melted. At the hospital, the contractions came fast, too fast. Carol kept Michael updated as the delivery sped along. After hours of grueling labor, Deborah's world shifted. Thomas Wilson, a perfect healthy boy, was born, his tiny breaths filling her exhausted arms with joy. She did it. The next day, Deborah rested in her hospital bed, postpartum aches lingering, but overshadowed by the sight of Thomas sleeping peacefully in his bassinet. Morning sunlight poured through the window, casting a golden glow over the room. A soft knock, and Michael appeared, clutching a vibrant bouquet of flowers. He'd rushed back from his trip the moment he heard the news. Deborah, you're amazing. He's perfect. Look at him. Michael said, his voice cracking as he lifted Thomas, gazing at his son with awe. But something felt strange. Michael's joy seemed genuine, but why was he so fidgety? His eyes kept darting toward the hallway. Is something wrong? Deborah asked, her voice soft but probing. He shook his head quickly, too quickly. No, it's nothing. Just waiting on a work call. They won't leave me alone even now. Sorry, he said, offering a weak smile. It made sense, but her gut screamed otherwise. Before she could press further, a nurse named Rachel breezed in, her smile bright as she checked Deborah's chart. Good morning, Mrs. Wilson. Feeling any better? Is the pain easing up? She asked, checking Deborah's blood pressure with practiced ease. She flashed a friendly grin at Michael, who nodded curtly and looked away. I'm a bit better, thank you, Deborah said, watching Rachel adjust her IV and hand her a painkiller. Take this with water, it'll help, Rachel said cheerfully, jotting notes before leaving. Michael mumbled something about a work call and slipped out after her. Alone, Deborah felt a sudden wave of drowsiness. That painkiller, was it too strong? She fought to keep her eyes open, but they grew heavier, and soon she sank into a deep, unnatural sleep. When she woke, a different nurse was cradling Thomas. Oh, you're up. He was hungry, so I've been holding him, the nurse said kindly. Deborah glanced at the clock, past noon. She'd slept for 4 hours. That medication, it knocked me out, she said, her head still foggy. Yes, Rachel noted it in your chart. We'll tweak the dose next time, the nurse replied, handing Thomas to her. But something didn't sit right. That afternoon, Deborah felt worse. Nausea hit hard, and her heart pounded wildly. She hit the call button, and Rachel appeared instantly. What's going on? She asked, her tone calm but clinical. I'm nauseous and my heart's racing, Deborah said, clutching her chest. Rachel checked her vitals, her hand cool against Deborah's forehead. You might have a slight fever, pretty common after childbirth. I'll adjust your IV meds, she said, swapping the bag and scribbling more notes. As Rachel left, Deborah caught her pulling out her phone, typing a quick message. To whom? That evening, Carol arrived with Lily, whose eyes sparkled at the sight of her baby brother. Mom, Thomas is so tiny, can I hold him? She asked, bouncing with excitement. Deborah laughed, pulling her daughter close. He is tiny, but he'll grow big and strong, just like you. I bet he'll love your science projects. Carol, though, looked worried. Deborah, you're so pale. Are you okay? She asked. Deborah shared her concerns about the strong medication and her strange symptoms. Carol's brow furrowed. That's not right. Have you talked to your doctor? Just then, Rachel swept back in, her smile almost too warm as she turned to Lily. Oh, you must be Lily. Your mom's told me all about how smart you are, she gushed. Deborah froze. She'd never mentioned Lily to Rachel, not once. What was going on? The hospital room felt stifling as Lily edged closer to her mother, her small frame trembling. I don't know this nurse, Mom, she whispered, her voice barely audible, her wide eyes darting toward Rachel. Deborah's heart gave a nervous lurch. Why did Lily look so uneasy? Rachel oblivious or perhaps pretending to be flashed a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Time for your medication, Mrs. Wilson," she chirped, holding out a small white pill. Deborah's gaze locked onto it, suspicion curling in her gut like a coiled snake. Was this pill safe? She didn't want to make a scene, not with Carol and Lily watching, so she took at her fingers, brushing Rachel's cold hand, and waited for the nurse to glide out of the room. As soon as Rachel's footsteps faded, Deborah turned to Carol, her voice low but urgent. "Don't you think there's something off about her? How did she know Lily's name?" Carol's brow furrowed, her eyes narrowing. "You're right, that was weird. It felt forced, didn't it?" Before they could dig deeper, Lily slipped out, muttering something about getting water. When she returned, her face was shadowed, her lips pressed tight as if guarding a secret. What had she seen? Carol excused herself to grab food from the cafeteria, leaving Deborah and Lily alone in the quiet room. Lily crept to her mother's bedside, her voice a hushed tremor. "Mom, I've seen that nurse before. With Dad." Deborah's heart stopped. "What?" When she gasped, her mind reeling. Lily's eyes glistened with worry. "2 weeks ago when Dad picked me up from school, he took me for ice cream, and I saw him talking to her at an outdoor table. They looked so serious, Mom." Deborah's breath caught. Michael had told her he was working late that day. Why would he lie? Sweet Lily, had no reason to make this up. Her daughter's honesty was as clear as the sunlight streaming through the window. That evening, Michael's visit was brief, his smile strained. As he stepped out, Deborah strained to listen. He didn't walk away immediately. Instead, soft voices drifted from the hallway, his and a woman's. Who was he talking to? The words were muffled, but the secrecy of it gnawed at her. That night's sleep eluded Deborah, her mind a storm of doubt and fear. Was Michael hiding something? By morning, exhaustion weighed on her, but the sight of Thomas breathing softly in his bassinet grounded her. This tiny, fragile life was her anchor, yet Lily's words echoed relentlessly. "I saw Dad with that nurse." Could Michael be entangled with Rachel? The thought twisted like a knife. Deborah's head throbbed as a new nurse, not Rachel, performed the morning vital check. "Rachel's on duty this afternoon," the nurse said casually, adjusting the IV. The reduced painkiller dose left Deborah's mind clearer, sharper, thank goodness. When her doctor visited, his calm demeanor soothed her frayed nerves, but his concern about her fever and nausea sparked fresh worry. "Let's run another blood test just to be safe," he said, his tone reassuring yet firm. Alone again, Deborah clutched her phone, her thumb hovering over Michael's number. Should she confront him? She dialed, her heart pounding. He answered after 3 agonizing rings. "Deborah, what's wrong?" "Are you okay?" His voice sounded tense. "I'm fine," she said, forcing calm. "Can you come with Lily when she visits today? Please." A sharp intake of breath crackled through the line. "That's tough today. I've got a big meeting," he replied, his excuse sounding rehearsed. "Okay," Deborah said, her voice flat, disappointment flooding her. "Talk later." She hung up, sinking into the bed, staring at the ceiling. Was she paranoid, or was her intuition screaming the truth? Postpartum hormones could be clouding her mind, but this felt too real. At lunchtime, Rachel swept in, her cheerfulness as bright as ever, too bright, but her eyes, they were cold, calculating. She set a tray of food on the table and handed Deborah another pill. "This is an antibiotic the doctor prescribed to prevent infection," she said smoothly. Deborah's stomach twisted. Had the doctor mentioned this? Did he order this himself? She asked, her voice steady, despite her racing pulse. Rachel hesitated, a flicker of unease crossed her face. "Yes, of course. It's in your chart," she said too quickly. Deborah took the pill but held it in her palm. "I'll take it after I eat," she said, watching Rachel's smile tighten. "Fine. I'll check back," Rachel replied, her tone clipped as she left. The moment the door closed, Deborah slipped the pill into the bedside table drawer. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. By 2:10 p.m., Carol arrived with Lily, who clutched a small bouquet of daisies, her face lighting up as she rushed to her mother. "Mom, you're okay, right?" Lily asked, her voice laced with worry. Deborah hugged her tightly, breathing in the familiar scent of her daughter's hair. "I'm okay, sweetheart," she said, but her smile felt hollow. Carol cradled Thomas, rocking him gently. "Deborah, I'm grabbing drinks." "Lily, apple juice?" she asked. "Yes, please," Lily chirped, But as soon as Carol left, her expression darkened. Lily leaned close, her voice a whisper. Mom, I saw that nurse again today with Dad. In the hallway when we got here. They didn't see us. Deborah's heart thundered. What were they doing? She asked, her throat tight. She looked scary. Mom, Lily said, her eyes wide. She told Dad, we'll do it today. And Dad said, not yet. Mom, is she planning something bad? Deborah's blood ran cold. Lily's words hit like a punch. Children's instincts were razor sharp, and Lily had sensed danger. Deborah's own suspicions, Rachel's odd behavior, the overly strong medication, knowing Lily's name, the questionable antibiotic clicked into place like a puzzle. Suddenly, voices echoed from the hallway, sharp and urgent. Lily's head snapped toward the window, her face resolute. With quick, quiet steps, she began drawing the heavy curtains, the fabric rustling softly. Lily, what are you doing? Deborah whispered, her pulse racing. Mom, she's coming, Lily said, her voice low but firm, her small hands moving with purpose. The curtains closed, casting the room in dim light. Lily darted back to the bed, her face serious beyond her years. Mom, get under the bed now, she urged, her eyes blazing with determination. Deborah didn't hesitate. Lily's fear was contagious, her urgency undeniable. Clutching Thomas, Deborah dragged the IV stand and knelt on the cold floor, her postpartum body protesting with sharp twinges of pain. She slid under the bed, cradling Thomas tightly, his tiny warmth grounding her. Lily scrambled in beside her, their breaths shallow in the cramped, dusty space. The hospital room door creaked open. Quiet footsteps approached, slow, deliberate. Deborah rocked Thomas gently, praying he wouldn't cry. Lily's small hand gripped her arm, trembling but resolute. The footsteps stopped near the bed. Deborah's heart pounded so loudly she feared it would give them away. There was a rustle, the sound of someone touching the pillow above. Where did she go? A woman's voice muttered, low and frustrated. Rachel. Deborah's blood froze. Lily's hand flew to her mother's mouth, a silent plea to stay quiet. Smart, brave girl, Deborah nodded, squeezing Lily's hand in return, their bond a lifeline in the darkness. Rachel's shoes clicked as she moved, and then a beep. She'd pressed the nurse call button. The patient is missing, she said, her voice tight with urgency. Heavy footsteps entered the room. Michael's. What are you doing? Where's Deborah? He demanded, his voice sharp with alarm. Rachel's tone shifted, low and venomous. Your obstacle will soon be gone. Just one injection. Deborah's heart plummeted. What was she planning? What are you talking about? Michael's voice cracked, laced with disbelief. We planned this, Michael. You, me, and the baby. We don't need your wife. Rachel said, her words dripping with madness. The baby will be ours. Deborah's world tilted. Terror gripped her as Thomas stirred in her arms. She kissed his forehead, willing him to stay silent. Lily's face was pale, her eyes wide with fear, but she held still, protecting her mother and brother with quiet courage. From under the bed, Deborah glimpsed Rachel's white nursing shoes and Michael's polished leather ones, inches apart. Michael's feet shifted backward. What are you saying? I only wanted to end things. I never agreed to hurt anyone, he said, his voice shaking. Relief flickered in Deborah's heart. Michael wasn't part of this insanity, but the danger was still here, breathing in the room. Rachel's voice trembled with fury. You promised we'd be together, she hissed. Deborah's eyes met Lily's, where fear mingled with fierce determination. Lily's small finger pointed to the nurse call button on Deborah's wrist, a watch-like device glowing faintly. Deborah nodded, her heart racing. Time was slipping away, and Rachel's syringe, loaded with who knows what, was far too close. Under the hospital bed, Deborah's heart thundered as she clutched Thomas. Her eyes locked on the sliver of light where Rachel's white nursing shoes and Michael's polished leather ones stood inches apart. You promised me a future, Michael. Rachel's voice rose sharp and unhinged. If she were gone, we could be the perfect family, don't you see? Michael's voice cracked with fury. Are you out of your mind? I told you I wanted to end the affair. I never said a word about hurting Deborah. Lily, or the baby. Deborah stiffened the word affair, slicing through her like a blade. Beside her, Lily's silent tears soaked into her sleeve, and Deborah wrapped an arm around her daughter, whispering, It's okay, sweetheart. Stay strong. Thomas miraculously stayed quiet, his tiny chest rising and falling in blissful ignorance. Break up. You think you can just walk away from me? Rachel's tone turned icy, venomous. Didn't you say your marriage was falling apart? That you weren't ready for another kid. Michael's voice steadied, though it trembled with emotion. I said that yes, but it was nerves before the birth. The second I saw Thomas, everything changed. Rachel, please put down that syringe and let's talk. This isn't you, Deborah's heart twisted. Betrayal stung, but hearing Michael defend their family sparked a flicker of relief. Was he really trying to protect them? Rachel's foot inched forward, her voice dripping with chilling certainty. It's too late, Michael. I've planned it all, her illness, the overdoses, every detail. No one will blink when she dies from complications. Michael's gasp echoed in the dim room. What have you done? Are you even human? Rachel's laugh was eerily calm. Love makes people do crazy things, Michael. If you loved me, you'd understand. This is for us. Deborah's blood ran cold. Rachel was deranged, completely unhinged. Her mind raced for an escape. She'd pressed the nurse call button, but how long until help arrived? Every second felt like an eternity. Rachel, you're sick. You need help. Michael said, his voice firm, but pleading, his feet shuffling back. I won't let you touch Deborah. Rachel's voice turned deadly. Then you're in my way, too. A scuffle erupted. Footsteps shuffled and something clattered to the floor. Michael groaned in pain. Rachel, stop, he shouted. Lily's grip on Deborah's arm tightened, her small body shaking with terror. Deborah's own fear threatened to swallow her, but she forced herself to stay calm for her daughter. We're okay, Lily, she whispered, though her heart screamed otherwise. Suddenly, the door burst open. Is everything all right? The nurse called, a new voice. Another nurse cut through the chaos. A stunned pause followed, then a gasp. Rachel, what are you doing? Stay out of this. Rachel shrieked, her voice wild. Security! Now the nurse yelled into the hallway. Footsteps thundered into the room, a cacophony of voices and movement. Deborah held Lily close, shielding Thomas, her heart pounding. She's got a syringe, someone shouted. The room erupted in chaos, grunts, shouts, then a sudden eerie silence. It's safe. We've got her restrained, a deep male voice announced. Deborah exhaled, her body trembling. Lily, it's over. Let's go, she whispered, her voice shaking, but resolute. Clutching Thomas, she crawled out from under the bed, pulling Lily with her. As they stood, the room spun into focus. 2 nurses, 2 security guards, and Michael, his face scratched, his shirt torn. Rachel thrashed against the guard's grip, a syringe glinting on the floor where it had fallen. Deborah, Michael's eyes widened, his voice thick with shock. Lily's small voice piped up, trembling but clear. We hid under the bed, Dad. I was so scared of her. Rachel's gaze locked onto them, her face contorting with rage. You ruined everything. We could have been happy, she screamed, her voice raw as security dragged her out. The room buzzed with tension, the hospital administrator summoned, as the gravity of the situation sank in. Deborah, Lily, and Thomas were swiftly moved to a new room, the air thick with the aftermath. Police arrived, collecting the syringe as evidence. The hospital's medical safety manager, her face pale, explained, the syringe contained a lethal dose of morphine. You're lucky to be alive, Mrs. Wilson. Deborah's hands shook as she stroked Lily's hair, her daughter nestled close. Rachel Collins was hired 2 months ago, but her credentials were falsified. She has a history of psychiatric issues and caused trouble at another hospital, the manager said, her tone heavy with apology. Why me? Why us? Deborah asked, her voice breaking. The manager sighed. The police believe she had a brief relationship with your husband and became obsessed gathering details about your family. She manipulated her assignment to your delivery. Outside the new room, Michael lingered, his face etched with shame. Deborah's eyes met his, but words failed her. Can we talk? He asked, stepping inside, his voice barely above a whisper. Lily, wait outside for a minute. Okay, Deborah said gently. Lily's anxious glance lingered, but she nodded and slipped out. Michael's shoulders slumped. I met Rachel 3 months ago. He began, his voice heavy. It was a stupid mistake, Deborah. I tried to end it a month ago, but she wouldn't let go. I had no idea she was this unhinged. I'm so sorry. Deborah's voice was ice. Your mistake nearly killed us, Michael. How could you? He bowed his head, tears brimming. I know. I don't deserve forgiveness. But for Lily and Thomas, please let me try to make this right. Deborah turned to the window, her heart a battlefield of betrayal and gratitude. Lily's courage had saved them, but Michael's infidelity had invited this nightmare. I need time, she said finally, her voice steady. Right now, my kids are all that matter. Michael nodded, his face crumpling, and left without another word. 3 months later, Deborah sat on the porch of her new home, a cozy haven surrounded by greenery. The smaller house felt like a fresh start, its warm sunlight a balm for their wounded hearts. Thomas slept peacefully in her arms, his soft breaths a reminder of life's fragility. In the garden, Lily chased a butterfly, her laughter ringing out. "Mom, look, it's so pretty," she called, her arms outstretched. Deborah's heart swelled. Her daughter's brightness was returning bit by bit. Rachel Collins had been diagnosed with borderline personality disorder and delusional disorder, confined to a state facility after a psychiatric evaluation. The police uncovered her twisted obsession, exaggerating her brief fling with Michael into a fantasy of marriage and family. Shockingly, she'd caused similar chaos at other hospitals, slipping through with forged credentials. Lily, though still in counseling twice a week, was healing, her resilience shining through. The occasional shadow of anxiety lingered, but she carried a quiet pride. She was their little hero. The divorce with Michael had finalized last month. He'd quit his job and moved to the West Coast, sending child support, but keeping his distance. Phone calls with Lily were limited to once a month, a painful but necessary boundary. With a lawyer's help, Deborah secured sole custody of the children, a weight lifted from her shoulders. Thanks to Carol, she'd started working part-time at the local library 3 days a week. The hours gave her time with Lily and Thomas while weaving her into the community. Reading stories to kids at the library storytelling sessions sparked joy she hadn't felt in months. How had she forgotten how much she loved this? Carol appeared at the back door, 2 steaming mugs in hand. Tea she offered her, smile warm. Since the ordeal, Carol had been a rock, visiting weekends to help with chores and childcare. "Thank you," Deborah said, taking a mug, her voice thick with gratitude. "I wouldn't have made it without you, Carol." Her friend sat beside her, waving off the praise. "You're tougher than you know, Deborah. And Lily, she's a force." Deborah's gaze settled on Lily, who was now twirling in the grass. "She saved us," she said softly, her heart swelling with pride. Life could be cruel, unpredictable, but it had taught her what family truly meant, not just blood, but the unbreakable bonds forged in trust and protection. The ordeal had scarred them, but it had also strengthened the tie between her, Lily, and Thomas. Mom, Lily ran up, her cheeks flushed. "Is Thomas awake? Can I hold him?" Deborah smiled, handing her son to her daughter, who cradled him with care. "I'll always protect you," Lily whispered, kissing Thomas's forehead. Deborah watched, her heart brimming with hope. The road ahead was uncertain, but with her children by her side, she felt ready for whatever came next.